Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Undercooled. We're very excited today. We have a guest with us. Once again, you don't just need to listen to Tim and I blab on to each other. Tim is going to introduce our guest.
Yeah, that's right. Today we have someone from far up north in the land of snow and ice. So we have Izzy Jaszczak here from Michigan Technological University. Izzy, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Hi. Yep, we've gotten about a foot of snow every day, it seems like.
Well, we'll do our best to stay productive and warm despite Michigan being Michigan. But first, for some background for the audience, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, where you come from, how you ended up where you are?
So I grew up in Downriver, Detroit, and my dad was a chemistry teacher, so I was raised to be a science buff, and he was also an MTU alumni, so I was kind of set on a track early on to be coming up to Michigan Tech for engineering. I decided to go into material science my senior year of high school, and I started at Michigan Tech in 2017 with a bachelor's in material science. I completed that degree in 2022, and I stayed on for a master's degree, which I earned in 2023.
So you discovered material science as a high schooler. What was that like? I know we've been trying a lot to reach more high school students, so any success is a good one.
So I was, I someone introduced me to an opportunity at Michigan Tech, which is a women in engineering camp. And at that camp, it's just marketed as a sampler of every type of engineering curriculum that Michigan Tech offers. So throughout the week, you try mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, materials engineering, environmental. And I was set in stone for going into mechanical. I did really like CAD and modeling in general. Chemical engineering interested me a little bit, but during the MSE demo, I was like, this seems really cool. This is very chemistry heavy. I liked the idea of the design aspect that's in materials engineering. Like, oh, I get to alter that and attempt to change the structure either through processing or what alloying elements we put in. And so I was sold at that point.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, what is your current role at Michigan Tech and how did you get there? What was your career trajectory like?
Well, I started in MSE and I absolutely loved the curriculum. I loved everything about my core classes, except whenever it got to looking for a job, nothing seemed to really click with me. Research seemed stressful to me. I didn't love the idea of working in a foundry. And so I actually, at one point, decided I'm just going to earn my MSc degree and then start being a chemistry teacher in a high school and earn my interim teaching certificate. I was going to bail in terms of staying in the MSc sphere. But Dr. Paul Sanders at Michigan Tech noticed that I wasn't signing up for internships or going to career fair. And he's like, you're a good student. What are you doing? And I said, I have a passion for teaching and I want to do that. And he's like, well, you shouldn't just do nothing in the meantime. So how about you come and be a co-op in the Michigan Tech Foundry? There's a lot of teaching assistant opportunities in that space for both the castings class and also some of the other courses he teaches that relate to senior design. So I said, yep, that sounds great to get some teaching experience. And I did that for 18 months straight, and I loved it. And over that period in my undergrad, when I was working in the foundry and TAing, that's when I started to realize that I could have a career at Michigan Tech, not as a professor, but as technical staff that also worked with students. So that's how I got into my current role as a research engineer who also does quite a bit of teaching.
And it's really great for, I think, for students to hear that there's more than one way, you know? A lot of students kind of get in the system and they're like, I'm either going to go to a company and get a job or I'm going to become a professor. And those are two roles that are possible, but there's a lot of other options as well. And so
Yep.
to hear about other ideas, I think is really important.
Yep.
Uh, I had kind of a similar experience as an undergrad. I'm like, I just want to finish my degree and get out of here so I can go be a teacher. And then as I had some experiences doing more kind of formal teaching work within the university, I said, oh, actually, doing this with college students is pretty cool. Maybe I should do more of it. And sort of one thing led to another. So it was a fun kind of parallel there.
Yep. Another thing I love about working at a university, so the other half of my job that's not teaching and working with curriculum, I operate our scanning electron microscopes through the ACMEL shared facility at Michigan Tech. And that even has so much opportunity to work with students because we have undergrads and graduates that want to get trained on the microscopes to complete their work. And most of the time they haven't taken the class. So while you're going through the training with them, you are a teacher, and it's a one-on-one experience, which is also very rewarding.
Yeah, I remember a lot of doing SEM trainings as well on my side, and just spending that individual time with one student and really getting to understand what they're into and what they want to do, and to even ask them the question of, why are you doing this? And then they sort of stare blankly, like, what do you mean, what am I doing? And I asked, why are you doing this?
Yep.
It's good to have those conversations.
I always say that I can be the driver, but they got to have a map. They know their samples better than anybody, so I can collect data, but they're going to know what data is the most meaningful.
Well, as long as we're talking about work in the lab, I think that brings us to our main topic for the day, which is, I know from talking to you and Dr. Paul and the crew up at Tech that you've done some really big changes to your lab curriculum in the last couple of years, and that you've actually been able to expand it, which is the huge challenge of labs is always, how can you possibly scale it bigger and still have it be a quality experience? So can you, I guess, just give us the background first of what were the old labs like and sort of what was working, what was not working, and what was the impetus for wanting to overhaul your lab sequence?
So at Michigan Tech, we have a course called Principles of Metal Casting, and that is the course that we just overhauled. It previously had a capacity of 40 students, and we always maxed out those 40 students because the class wasn't just open to the MSE major. It counted towards minors in both the mechanical engineering and mechanical engineering technology majors. So the class filled up quickly because those are some of the biggest majors here on Michigan Tech's campus. So since there was a high demand, we saw that we could expand the number of students that we introduced to casting and MSE if we could get the class bigger. But we were already running 3-hour labs with 10 people in them, and we had 4 lab sections total to accommodate the previous 40-person capacity. And the first route everybody thinks of is just add more lab sections, easy peasy, but then that takes away from all the technical staff. Exactly. All the people who run the labs are technical staff that are also supposed to support the research of other faculty in the department. So eating up every single work week with castings lab was not going to be functional in terms of the department as a whole. So then that led to us breaking down the curriculum and digesting what we should keep and what we shouldn't keep and restructuring the whole lab.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about what actually goes into your casting experience you give your students?
So previously, the lab sections are 3 hours, and something that was great about the previous lab structure was when we had a casting lab, all the students got to experience everything that goes on in a traditional casting. Like, you're checking chemistry, or you're checking cooling curves, you're doing green sand molding right before the pour. We had students on a team prepping the charge material, weighing it out so that we were hitting an alloy spec. But all of this was going on in 3 hours. I always described it as a circus. I was a student in Principles of Metal Casting when I was an undergrad, when we were doing those labs. And it was so cool to see everybody working together, but I definitely did not learn a bunch of hands-on skills. In terms of what we were casting during those labs, we always try to cast objects that students want to take home. Not everybody wants to take home a brake rotor or a Y block. So we have various trinkets, patterns that we've developed, like little tokens. We have small 6-inch cast iron skillets we cast that students can finish up and take home. Sometimes we do anvils, and we would raffle them off for the people who are interested in foraging and blacksmithing. So no matter what we're casting, it's going to be an object students want to take home.
It's really good that the students get to actually take something home with them that they made at the end of the lab. I do get to do that in my freshman like intro course, and some of the students are really proud of what they've made. And they say, "Wow, I actually like I'm a real engineer. I made something." And
Yeah.
not all classes give that opportunity, so that's really great.
Yep. Something else that was a huge part of the class and which made it very popular for even non-engineering majors. I think for the past 4 years, we've always had one or two students in the class that are from the visual and performing arts majors because they're interested in the artistic side of casting. So in the casting course, we would have a group project where in teams of 4 to 6, students would follow the whole entire process of developing a casting. So modeling it in CAD, checking it in InspireCast, making sure that it'll fill, designing gating and runner systems for that object so that we improve the filling of that casting, manufacturing a pattern, molding it, casting it, finishing it. So we would do that over the course of a semester, and previously students got to pick whatever object they wanted to do for that. So that also led to, like you said, students' drive to create something and take it home is intense. So.
Right. And having taken the class yourself, I imagine as part of the revision process, you had a lot of personal experience about what did and didn't work for you as a student that you were actually able to bring to that revision process. So what did that look like in terms of designing the changes to the curriculum?
The biggest shift that I push for in any class I help with, I've helped with 3 classes so far since I've been hired, is the lab sections should have measurable skills that we're giving the students, not just more knowledge. Knowledge should come from lectures, and labs should be hands-on. And we have students who come into castings and they haven't used screwdrivers or hammers before even. I was one of those students. When I started co-oping, I had used like a power drill and that's it. And so just doing those 10-minute trainings with students so that they can use the band saws and use more hand tools really ups their confidence. So when we redesigned the course, we wanted to make sure that we had enough time in the section where everybody got to do something hands-on. They got to make a cut with the saw. They got to sign off on the training certificate that they can use that piece of equipment by themselves. They got to pack a mold by themselves, not in a team of 5 people so that they're barely touching the sand. When I took the castings class, I didn't feel like I gained a lot of skills from it. I learned a lot of knowledge of how the process worked, but I didn't think I could do it independently. So our goal in redesigning the labs is through the curriculum in the first half of the semester, when the students got to their group project at the end of the semester, they could run it for the most part on their own. Obviously not melt the metal. We were still going to be there for that, but that they could fabricate their patterns and molds by themselves. Did that answer your question?
That. Oh, absolutely. I love that that you're getting the students to a point where they can actually do things independently, because that's always a struggle with bigger lab courses where it's teams of 2 or 3 and 4 and 5 students. And just exactly as you said, sometimes there's an individual who never touches a certain apparatus at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, what did you actually get out of it besides some theoretical awareness of this thing exists? Mm-hmm. We want them to leave with the confidence to say, I can do something.
Yep. And I would claim I was a pretty good student, but I was a big note taker. I was so worried about taking in the knowledge that I was the person in the corner taking very, very crispy notes. But then if we had a practical at the end of the semester where I had to make a mold, that's where I would probably struggle a little bit because I had great notes on how to do it, but I hadn't had the repetitive practice throughout lab. So we used to have labs that were great for knowledge, and we switched to labs that are great for skills.
There's no substitute for putting in the repetitions and
Mm-hmm.
just doing something many times and saying, now I know how to do this for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And now with the new labs, how did you solve the scaling problem? You managed to make enrollment go up, and still it sounds like from talking to you that everything is going pretty well. So what was the secret? Tell us how to do it.
So we took those, I still refer to them as the circus labs when we do everything in 3 hours. Like, let's split it up so that we have a casting prep lab where we weigh out the charge material along with calculating the charge material, and prep our molds with Kanban sand so that they can sit for a week. So with those prep labs, students were using different power tools to cut up the charge material, and then they also got a lot of practice with molding with different patterns. And then the week immediately after the prep lab, we would have a casting lab where we would melt the metal, pour the metal, check chemistry and cooling curves. So by splitting up the labs that used to be 3 hours into two-hour labs, we got double the curriculum for the same amount of hours, same amount of money in terms of use fees and material. And the benefit to the students was they got more hands-on time. So it just seemed like a win-win across the board in terms of staff time, student time, and use of resources. So that was the big key to being able to expand the lab course, was talking through that it was okay to not do everything at once, and that splitting it up has benefits across the board, and therefore we can move down to 2 hours, 2-hour lab sections without compromising the student's experience or our experience.
So what kind of changes do you see in the future? Are you going to add any computational components to your casting experience?
So this year we did improve that aspect as well. So for labs that weren't melting aluminum or melting iron, we wanted to, again, make sure that students were getting a skill. And that's where we hung our hat on computer skills. So in the past, we always had InspireCast labs where students would run simulations with different pour temperatures, different mold types to see how that affected filling. This year, we also added in thermocalc, so students could generate phase diagrams for the alloys they were casting, look at what melting temperature and appropriate superheat we should be expecting for this alloy. And we also did image analysis for microstructure, which was different from previous years. So giving students more computer tools to take into the workforce.
With them using thermocalc, and this is a personal pain point question where I'm coming from with this, because I also have my students using thermocalc to do some microstructural prediction. Have they taken a thermodynamics course before the lab, and how are you able to get them to make those connections between the different classes?
The prereq for Principles of Metal Casting is Intro to MSE. So Intro to MSE does not go too far into thermodynamics, but we do discuss phase diagrams in terms of how to use them as a tool. How do you do the lever rule? How can you find key temperatures from a phase diagram? And how can you use it on a job? So we just play off that a little bit more in the class in terms of you can develop a tool custom for the situation that you're going into. If it's an experimental alloy, if it's a commercial alloy, and we just want to check and make sure that we're pouring at the right temp. So I guess to answer your question, we don't go too much more into the thermodynamics of it because that is a higher level class. We just expand the potency of the tool.
Sure. Yeah, the curriculum's a little bit different here in that when our students are doing their work in thermocalc, it's generally the same semester that they're also taking the thermodynamics class. But even so, I find that a lot of my students don't really appreciate that what they're doing is actually a simulation. A lot of them tend to think of thermocalc as more just a database, and not that they're actually doing calculations of material properties in a first principles kind of way. So I'm always trying to find better ways to get that across and to make the students appreciate this is a robust theoretical model you're using. It's not just a lookup table.
We did do an activity which seemed to resonate well with especially the mechanical engineers who phase diagrams and microstructures are very new to them, where we took the phase diagrams that we modeled in earlier weeks and we compared them to our image analysis of the microstructures. So doing the lever rule and one-to-one seeing, we are getting about this much silicon, beta silicon or pro-eutectic or eutectic silicon. And them getting to run those calculations and see like the phase diagram was predicting what we actually cast, I think hit home for a lot of people. And it took away it's just a computer thing that you can do, seeing that it actually was predictive for our alloy we cast.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably another benefit that comes from splitting up the labs a little bit more, is you can have that sequence be more intentional where they're doing those tasks in a certain order so that one naturally follows after the other.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you've reinvented casting at Michigan Tech and the way you teach it, are you being tapped to do things for other lab courses or other modules?
Right now, I am helping improve the Characterization 1 course we have here at Michigan Tech. So that is the first, I don't want to say the first, one of the first core curriculum classes that our students take once they get out of the Intro to MSE classes. So they start learning tools that they can use like XRD, SEM, tensile testing in order to characterize their samples. So previously that class had small units on different materials. So there would be a small unit on brass, a small unit on, I think it was Jomini unquenched steel. And they were great activities and they definitely stuck in people's brains because they were cool, but it was hard to synthesize data throughout the whole entire semester because of that. So me and Dr. Alexandra Glover, who's the lead professor in the class, have made it all about duplex steels. We're looking at the same duplex steels the whole entire semester, and we're having students slowly add the pieces of the tetrahedron together so that they can paint a full picture in terms of structure, properties, processing for these duplex steels.
That's very cool. It's been my experience in labs as well that the longer projects do actually give you more opportunity for students to just have a more complete understanding of a single material system and get it in depth, as opposed to here's the thing you learn for a week, here's the thing you learn for a week, and there's not really that sort of synthesis that comes when it's so scattershot.
Yeah.
Well, what else? Let me think. As we've talked a lot about developing new ideas or modules or making curriculum revisions and so on, I also have been wondering, now that you've mostly successfully, mostly completed one development and you're working through a second one now, what's your advice to the would-be curriculum developers out there? If someone says, yeah, you know what, I want to update our labs, what have you learned by surviving the experience that you could share with others?
Something I really hope I am doing, as well as I think I'm doing, is listening to students. I know when I was a student, I had opinions and I wanted to share them, and I didn't think I had a platform at that point, so I was just kind of pessimistic about stuff. But when we complete a lab, we're very transparent about, like, y'all were the guinea pigs. This is the first time you tried this curriculum. Do you feel like you're leaving with a skill? Was it really boring? Is the assignment that you're completing after connecting well? And just getting student feedback as you make changes is huge, because they're the ones who have to do it every year and complete it. And you want to make sure that they're learning. You have to take everything they say with a grain of salt, though, because of course students are going to want the easy way out.
Yeah.
But asking them questions that are targeted on understanding is going to get you the best information for how you need to adjust. They're always going to ask for a shorter report or less homework, but asking them, if I gave you a problem right now, could you repeat what we did in lab? And getting a yes or no and feedback from that is huge.
One guinea pig moment that I remember from just last year actually was we were doing a new experiment for which I didn't even have an SOP written yet because we were really prototyping it with the students. And so the students' assignment was to write an SOP for the experiment.
Mm-hmm.
But also now this year, the next group of students is using the SOPs written by the previous students. And now we can really discover what worked and what didn't, and what, did the previous students understand enough to be able to transmit forward and give good advice. And what did it turn out? They thought they knew that maybe there were some gaps after all.
Mm-hmm. Students nowadays, a disconnect that from different generations, and I know that like I'm slowly aging out of the current generation, but I don't know, as instructors, you probably notice the same thing. The students right now, they can get whatever knowledge they want just by Googling it. They can watch how to cast on YouTube. They can find a YouTube video that explains the theory behind thermocalc. So all the information's at the tips of their fingers. The hard part is focus and getting them to actually sit down, and the repetitions, connecting the knowledge to application to synthesis is what, when I'm designing curriculum, that I really want to work into the structure to try to improve focus. If they're in MSE, they're, as Dr. Paul says, they're already on the bus. We don't need to give them a bunch of fun facts to keep them tuned into class. Instead, we want them to feel or leave class feeling confident in the fact that they're gaining skills.
Yeah, we like to say that video is great, YouTube is great for training people. College is great for educating them. And the difference really is knowing facts doesn't help you be able to explain why things happen. And that much higher level synthetic thing that goes on in your mind, that takes a lot of practice.
Absolutely.
It's funny, last night I got to hear Branford Marsalis. He didn't play saxophone, but he's famous for it. He talked about what jazz means to him. And it was amazing because he's, the interviewer said, "So who do you admire?" And he looks at him and said, "No one alive, only dead people." And she goes like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, he said, I started playing jazz when I was a kid, and I played into my 20s, and I didn't know what I was doing. And 95% of the players that I play with, because they're young kids, they're terrible. They don't know anything about jazz. And he said, I started to realize that I didn't know anything about jazz when I was like 25. But it wasn't until I was 35 or almost 40 till I actually started feeling like I knew what I was doing. Because it's all about, why am I doing this? What's gone before me? And what's gone on with all the people? And he said he didn't even, and the interviewer said, "Well, was there a moment you knew?" Now, I don't think this is something that we get in material science, but he said, yes, I have a specific time. I played a concert, and this person came up to me, and they were in tears. They were crying because they said the music moved them so much. And that blew me away. I couldn't believe that I was able to do that. But it kind of speaks to what we're trying to teach our students, to really have a feel for what we do practically and then what comes out, so that we understand why things worked, why things didn't work, and so that we gain this deep intuition about how theory combines with practice to actually get things done. And that's something you can't do by watching YouTube videos. And you need to be in there in the lab and try it and fail many, many times. And then with the help of your instructors, try to figure out why it didn't work.
Yep.
Then if you have the time, and you never do, but if you have the time to actually work on it to improve it, but that's going to take many more years. So I thought Branford Marsalis was kind of speaking to me in a lot of ways. It was very interesting to hear him talk. What a smart guy he is.
And for our students who do go out in the world and get real jobs, as opposed to, you and me, Steve, and they go out and they get to make things, and then there's a product that's out in the world that they had a part in making, I feel like they do get some of that validation that way. If someone designs a battery component for a car, or, if they develop a new high temperature ceramic that goes into a jet engine, and then they actually get to see that car on the road or that plane in the sky, and they're like, I helped make that. I think that does, after the fact, give them some of that, why am I doing this? And I just wish we could somehow bring more of that into class to have students feel that motivation earlier on.
That's a good point. So I enjoy teaching and I love teaching skills. I haven't had an industry job, and that's where I really try to lift up when I'm redesigning courses, the people who work at Michigan Tech that do have industry experience and do have those stories. So when Dr. Paul can teach, like, come here and talk about your time at Ford. Dr. Glover, who's teaching the characterization class, she worked in industry and at a national lab. So encouraging faculty and the technical staff that have industry experience to talk about that industry experience in the right forum is huge.
This might be a good transition to our next topic now that we're talking more about the motivational side of things and just what makes students want to do the things that they do, and also to help students stay motivated to, for lack of a better phrase, stay in school, because college is hard. I know the hat that Steve and Izzy have in common is doing the advising work in the department. So let's actually talk about that a little bit more. As advisors, you see the challenges that students have to deal with outside of the classroom. And what are some things that you found out that are challenges that our students are facing that maybe we're not aware of, maybe challenges we didn't have as students, and how do we support them as instructors when they're dealing with so much life outside of the classroom?
That's a good question. I've served as interim academic advisor for about 2 full months now, and it's already been a world of a learning experience. As you said, Steve, they will come to you no matter what. If your door is closed and they have issues that they want to address now. But kind of what I said before, I think students are very overwhelmed in terms of right now they're encouraged to do so much with extracurriculars. A lot of students have to work. And when they are at home and they have the option to watch YouTube or take in social media, it's just lots of little information. And so I'm really hanging my hat on is when we have time with students, really trying to get them to focus on one thing and hone in skills for one piece of knowledge, one task, and become an expert in it as fast as they can, at least in that school setting, is the best way to get to them. Not overwhelming them in the classroom with a bunch of little things, because that's the rest of their life. When they come into the classroom, having a more singular task for them to focus on, and again, leave with more confidence, and that they actually gained a skill, not a new bit of information to file into their brain.
I emphasize with all the students I talk to that it's so important to form study groups with their classmates. In fact, that's one advantage of material science, because we're all small departments, and usually the same group of students is in all the classes in a given term, so they only need one study group. But I try to emphasize how social learning should be. And, it's something I learned the hard way just by trial and error. But it's a lot more fun to study with a group of other people than to study by yourself. Mostly because you realize you're not missing out on anything. Like, I'm stuck in here in the library and all my friends are out at the bar. And that's not a good place to be. It's much better, even if you're working with people who aren't even working on the same topic, right? Even if it's other friends, it's important to do it together. There's some weird energy that happens that allows you to focus and actually learn if you feel you're not missing out on other things. Also, when you study in a group, you're probably not just watching YouTube videos or using ChatGPT to get the answers. You might actually be talking about it with each other. So I've been a huge proponent of team-based learning as an alternative to lectures. The students hate me for it because they have to work harder, but I really do believe they learn a lot more. So when I talk to students with advising, I try to give them career advice, which they really need. They really need to start thinking about what they want to do when they graduate the instant they show up on campus, so they don't lose out on opportunities. But I also try to talk about study skills and ways to manage their time, because you're right, they have so many extracurriculars, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, college is a wonderful experience, and classes are highly overrated. the thing that you get the most out of with college are the relationships you have with all of the other students, the experiences you have, and then getting involved with things like whether it be, band or being on the concrete canoe team or the solar car team or, or a sailing team, a sailing club, whatever it is. These kinds of experiences, experiential learning is one of the most valuable parts of a residence college experience that no virtual experience could ever do. But that leaves the responsibility to us as advisors to help students learn how to navigate that and still get A's in all their courses. Yeah. So, I really do believe that we should teach a course which no one teaches, Introduction to Studying for college, in college classes. And there are good YouTube videos about that. That guy, Ali Abdul, who is he's a famous YouTuber. He makes millions of dollars. He talks about how he survived medical school in England. And he used to teach all of his other students all of his tricks for how to learn. But he became so successful at YouTube, he quit his job as a doctor because that wasn't earning him enough money.
Wow.
And now he's this productivity guru, which is really stupid because productivity stuff, what a waste of time. You spend all this time trying to figure out how to be more productive, and it makes you less productive because you weren't actually doing anything. And I wish he'd go back to talking about how to learn how to study, because that stuff he did on the internet was unbelievable, how good it is. And he talks about studying in groups, and he talks about how to take notes by resynthesizing and being self-critical, and how to take, you don't ever just read, you have to take notes. You have to, read,
as
critically.
multimodal as possible.
Yeah, you need to learn how to think. And those are all very efficient things, and those are all lead to productivity. But oh my God, what a scam the productivity market is out there with these people writing books and all this. And these people think that if they watch these YouTube videos, they're going to, make as much money as he does, but he made his money by scamming you. So, but his stuff he did on education, if you want to have, I've given some of his YouTube videos about ways to study and be, do well on exams. They're just fantastic, and it's all out there for free on YouTube.
Okay. I'll have to look them up. One of my favorite pieces of advice to give to procrastinating students, because this was given to me, I forgot by who, but it worked out so great. I was someone who was always doing my homework into the wee morning hours of 1 or 2 a.m. And someone said, if you want your evenings open, start treating school like a 9 to 5. And you fill every hour you can from 9 to 5 with something that helps your learning. So if that's doing homework or studying for an exam or going to lunch with your friends, meeting up with a study group, going to the gym, whatever, but be on campus from 9 to 5 and focus on your brain and your learning. And that way you never have to say no to opportunities most of the time, unless it's a heavy assignment week. But most of the time, you don't have to say no to evening opportunities with extracurriculars or work or sports or friend groups. Yep. So that was huge for me to be like, I can just do it in the middle of the day instead of just going home or picking up an extra shift at work in the middle of the day. Treating school like a job and focusing for a set period of time and then cutting it off right at 5 p.m.
That's good advice.
Great advice.
I used to do that myself. I tried once pulling an all-nighter before an exam. What a mistake. What a terrible idea. And I decided after that, no more. I'm getting my work done because I'm going to go to the bar the night before every exam. Because when I went to school, it was only 18 was the drinking age everywhere. Okay. And so I went to the bar with my friends, and I left early. I left at 11 p.m., while they all stayed till 2. And I got a good night's sleep, and I was relaxed, and I was happy because if I didn't know it by then, I wasn't going to learn it. And I did really well on all my exams because I was well rested. I had already learned the material, and I wasn't stressed out. I had a good time the night before. So, yeah, I used to follow that. But the other piece of advice for procrastinators, and this still happens to me because I hate writing proposals, I hate grading papers, we're all like that, right? We procrastinate things we don't really want to do, but we have to do them. But I find that if I'm working on a team, all of a sudden I get it done because I feel such a responsibility for the other people in the team to do my part. So if you can set yourself up in situations where you're responsible for helping the whole team, it's amazing how quickly procrastination really isn't an issue. The issue is more, how the hell am I going to get this done?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other piece of it. That's, again, why working with teams is so powerful, because you'll do things for teams that you would never do for yourself. I mean, just think about when you were in the band, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't practicing for you. You were practicing because you didn't want to look bad in front of all your friends.
In front of 110,000 people, yeah.
Right.
What instrument did you play?
I still found a way, but I marched tuba because it's a long string and a string of bad life decisions. Major in physics, march tuba, It's very much like I can go into class, don't make the mistakes that I made, kids. Play something easy like clarinet.
On Saturday Night Live, the 3-hour thing they just had, there was a famous rapper. I don't remember his name because I don't know that stuff. But he had this big band behind him, and they had a tuba player in the rap band doing all these bass lines. It was amazing.
That's fun. I'll have to catch up on that. So what else? Goodness. We've covered so much ground already.
Well, what about recruiting for MSE?
Yeah,
we
I
sure
definitely
have
would
a
like to ask
problem
about recruiting.
I presume you have an issue too, attracting students to material science.
I think it's pretty across the board for most universities that since we're not a subject in high school and we're not a subject in middle school, they just don't know about us young students. So we've been trying our best to ramp up our efforts in the summer youth programs. I touched base a little bit on that. I was a summer youth kid, and we're going to be offering a casting only week program. So it'll be a mini version of the Principles of Metal Casting course, probably with more creative objects to catch the attention of the kids a little bit more. And then we are also developing a chemistry and material science course to try to catch those students who know that they like chemistry from middle school and high school, and going a little bit more into what the atoms are doing. So that's one effort that we're working on. And we have also really ramped up just visits to local schools as much as possible. So bringing either scanning electron microscopes or foundry in a box or lots of tactical objects, because as we brought up, people love having a trinket in their hand, and talking about how that trinket was made can really strike a kid's interest. So having the staff time and the staff power to do those outreach events, I think, is making a difference over here.
That's really good. We are doing more with bringing students on site so that they can do things at the university and see, oh wow, it's really cool here. But the idea of having a summer program that's longer term is really appealing, because you can just build relationships in a way that's not possible in a one-day field trip.
Mm-hmm. Those camps are run by a full team of people, technical staff, faculty, grad students, even some undergrad students. So if it's a high school junior who's participating in the camp and that seals the deal for them going into MSE, if they do come to our program specifically, they're going to know 10, 20 faces in the department.
And that's such a huge advantage for a freshman showing up on campus, and to, instead of have to say, I don't know anyone, how do I make friends? I'm lost in this huge new place, to say, oh, I know you, I know you, I know you. That must be such a huge confidence boost for them.
Yes.
So you should come to the NAMES meeting, the North American Materials Education Symposium this summer at Georgia Tech. see if your department chair, is it Walt? Is he
It
the
is Walt
department
right
chair?
now. Yep.
Yeah, tell Walt that I said he should pay for you to go. And
I'm writing this down.
yes, you can blame me. Because I think it would be great to have you talk about both your casting class and also this idea, the camps that you're running to it. Because you're right, this is a problem that all of our materials programs face. And so I know there's going to be some discussion about all those things. It would be great to have you come. I'm hoping that Tim and I are both going to be there, as our department chair has to put the bill to get us there. But if she'll pay, I'm sure both of us will be there.
Good to know. That's a part of my professional skills. I'm still growing is industry connections and going to conferences. I went to the casting congress for the first time and I got to meet new faces. So thank you for the recommendation. I will ask Walt.
Yeah. I know, actually, this is another good bit of student advice as well, is I certainly never went to conferences when I was a student. And the missed opportunity there of just, again, being able to meet people and say, oh, these are faces that I know. These are familiar, friendly people in the field that I'm going to be working in. And it would have been really great for me to have made more of those connections. But, it is what it is. But now I can certainly tell students a lot more. Find a way. There's funding support available. There's scholarships available. Going to conferences doesn't have to empty your bank account, and the rewards can be huge.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'll have a link to the NAMES conference in the show notes for this coming year, and you can take a look at their website. But it's a great community of materials educators who the whole conference is focused on best practices. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a research topic. It could just be things we've tried that seem to work, and we'd like to share it.
Okay.
So is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? Anything else you'd like our audience to know about you or what you're doing or what your plans are?
Anything cool happening up in Houghton that you want to brag about?
Like, do you have a snowplow in front of your vehicle so you can drive somewhere? How many inches have you had this winter so far?
I don't know the total, but I just know that me and my husband, we snow blow every night. And we're like, good, that'll be good for a couple days. And then we wake up the next morning and we're like, gotta do it again. It was hard after last winter with the El Nino weather. We had almost no snow.
Right.
So that was a treat, even though we were all sad we didn't have snow. To get back into the snow clearing cycle is quite a bit of work.
I just remember being up there and driving up to Copper Harbor and seeing that snow pole that went up to like 400 inches and 330 something's the record. But I saw a picture of, it's on the other side of the UP, Paradise.
Yep.
They have 200 inches of snow right now. Just
yep,
insane.
that sounds about right.
Madness.
I would say most of the drifts in town are probably chest height on me, so maybe 4 feet,
Right.
the drifts of all the compiled snow. Yeah.
Yeah, but the snow like recedes and comes back. And so if you look at the total you've gotten, it's probably quite a bit more.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm sure I'll see that meter when I do my Copper Harbor trips this summer.
This would be great motivation for a good senior design project for your students, is they need to come up with a better alloy for snowplow blades, because the stresses that those things are
that would
subjected
be a
to
good project
between thermal and then, the salt, mechanical stresses as well. That'd be fun, I think, to try to get into.
Yeah.
One small project that got brought up to us, we're waiting for some repairs on our induction furnaces, so we couldn't get it done this year, but we have Winter Carnival. I don't know if you've heard of that. Every February, a lot of the organizations across campus, so Greek Life and clubs, they participate in snow sculpture making competitions. There is a month-long competition where the sculptures are life-size, and if you walked through them, the buildings are 2 stories, life-size dragons and stuff, very cool. And then there's also overnight sculptures. So Ben Jaszczak, who's my brother-in-law, actually, he's in the marketing department, and he's been looking a little bit more into what do professional snow sculptors use when they do their work, and they often use steel or cast iron tools. I think they're called pickle forks that are ideal for carving up the snow and having good control so that you're not like chiseling lots of bevels into the snow, but you're actually like raking off smaller layers. And so he asked if we would be interested in making tools for campus so that we can improve snow sculpting. So hopefully next year that's something we can do in terms of like snow related activities. But the snow plow is a great idea for a senior design project. Dr. Paul should start making that connection.
Or if you get a broken one, do a failure analysis on it.
Well, I know what I'm going to do after we wrap up. I'm going to go read about the mechanical properties of snow because apparently it's more complicated than I thought.
Me too. And I heard that they were using steel tools to work with snow too, not ice, snow. I was like, wow. I didn't know that was necessary, but.
So you're more of a metallurgist than I am. I was always a semiconductor person. But I saw this thing in one of these dumb newsletters, on the internet. I guess it was underscored from CNN. They said that people should buy stainless steel soap to get rid of garlic and onion smells on their hands after they've been chopping onion. And they have a picture of this bar of soap, but it's made of stainless steel. How can that possibly remove odors? I don't understand that.
I don't either. That would take some literature review on my part, too.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, well, me too. I didn't buy it. I figure I have plenty of stainless steel. I could go rub my hands on the refrigerator,
All right, go do the experiment and report back to us in the next episode. We should wrap it up so I can get in the kitchen and go chop some onions and do an experiment.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. It was great to have you here. We got to talk about so many different topics, and hopefully I'll be up in April for the Tech EAB meeting.
Perfect.
So we can hang out there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you.
And it was nice to meet you, Steve.
Yeah, hopefully I'll meet you in Georgia Tech.
Yes.
As soon as Walt gives you a check to go.
I'm going to
go down
CC
there.
you on the emails so that.
Yeah, and if Walt won't do it, tell Janet to tell him to do it, because I know Janet's not the dean anymore, but she's a good friend. I've spent a lot of time with Janet, and I'm sure she knows all about the North American Materials Education Symposium. She should come too.
Okay.
So should Walt. Should all come down.
We're on the undergraduate curriculum committee together, so I can bring that up then.
Great. We'll make sure to say hi to them. They're awesome people.
Will do.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Thank you
and
so
to
much.
everyone out there in the audience, we'll see you next time on the next episode of Undercool.